Okay, we'll go ahead and get started then.
Okay.
Let's start by maybe having you say your name and then spell your name for us.
I go by Jerry Yesberger. Jerry, Jerry, and then Yesberger, Yesberger.
All right, thank you. My name's Robert Bauman, and today's date is December 9th of 2013. And we're conducting this interview on the campus of Washington State University, Tri-Cities. So Jerry, let's start maybe by having you tell us when you first arrived in the area, what brought you to Hanford.
Okay. Well, I was born, raised in Colorado, went to the University of Denver, and I graduated with a BS degree in 1950. And let's see here. Then I worked for a short time in Colorado, mainly because I wanted to come back from the state of Washington to the state of Washington. I was in the service from 43 to the end of 45, and I spent some time in the Seattle area and everything, and I really liked it. And so when I got back to Colorado, I applied for jobs with the state of Washington and everybody. Then there was an opening at Hanford. And at that time, everything here was General Electric Company, as you probably already know. There was no contractors other than GE. And they ran the community and everything. There wasn't anything other than GE here. And my first job at Hanford, which lasted about 5 years, was in the public health department, which we had most of our activity concerned the community rather than the site, although there were some activities during that we were asked to perform, such as I can remember that I'd been out to the site for some things to do with health matters and so on that I was asked to work on, and I did. And after about 4.5 years, the city became a city away from General Electric Company, and I wanted to stay with Hanford. So I applied. Well, I don't remember how exactly I got there, but the Radiation Protection Department in Hanford Laboratories at that time, and again, this was time when everything was one site. There was no contractors other than General Electric. Offered me a job in radiation protection. And my radiation protection time lasted an awful long time because I retired in early, gosh sake, it was 19, anyway, I had 36 years service. so, and my first job was out here in the 300 area, and GE at that time gave new people an awful lot of training, and I was trained as a health physicist, and I spent first few months training, and I spent they had a project here called 558 project. And what it did was go through the old reactors, all of the old reactors, and replace the tubing in the reactors. And each one of these assignments lasted 3 to 4 months. So we started out in B reactor and finished there. And my job was I had a crew of radiation monitors working for me, and we worked shift work because there was a big construction job. And it took about 3 to 4 months in each of the old reactors out there to go through these, replace the tubing and so on. So I followed those from B to C reactor to 100DR to 100H to 100F, doing the same thing essentially because we threw there. And then following that time, I went back into the 200 West area where I worked on projects and so on. And rather than I didn't have radiation monitors work for me then, but I was assigned projects myself to work on. And I did that I have worked in every area on the project out here with the exception of FFTF. I did not have an office there, but every other area I had an office in this things. So it was kind of really a broad orientation program and so on. I want to back up just a little bit. In the service, I was in the Coast Guard, and this was from 43 to 46. And I was a pharmacist mate, and again, the training was real good. And the last year or so, I was on a ship, USS Aquarius, and it was an attack cargo ship. And our job was to take troops. We had Marines that we had aboard, and we had training to have them land on, assigned. And boy, they really trained us. To make a long story short, we got an assignment, and we knew we were going to move our ship, but we didn't know where or what for. But it turned out it was that they were preparing to invade Japan with troops. And I never saw so many ships in my life where all had troops and we were ready to train. And we practiced getting on these landing barges, and of course I was a medic, so I had to go in with the troops, But I never had any real active duty during that time, prior to that time, because I was always doing these other things. But we were ready to go in, and so we had actually moved in to where we would make our move. And guess what? The Nagasaki bomb was dropped. Well, of significance there is the plutonium on that bomb was made at Hanford. So that was really an interesting aspect of it, and I've always been so interested in that aspect of the thing. Well, shortly after that, the war was over, and everybody was discharged, and then that's when I came back and went from there, like I said prior to this. But I thought that was an interesting aspect of this whole thing. But so I worked for the General Electric Company for about 5 years in radiation protection, doing all of these things I've been telling you all about. And again, I had very, very, very good assignments. Probably my most treasured assignment was I was a health physicist for biology out in the 100F area. And I spent a year out there, and that was because of all the animals, the pigs and the dogs and everything. And my job was to write radiation procedures for them to do work and to monitor, and I had radiation monitors reporting to me out there during that time. Well, following that, I don't know how this developed, but the Atomic Energy Commission, which was that time, got my name, and they asked me if I would be interested in a federal employment. So in the 1st of January 1960, I switched jobs from the General Electric Company to the Atomic Energy Commission. And my job there was, it turned out that I was a headquarters person because we were doing what they call compliance inspection of people that are used in the state of Washington, Alaska, and Washington. Anybody that had a license for radioactive material, they had to be inspected. I was one of these inspectors. And it was a very, very interesting job. Involved a tremendous amount of travel, however. And we were always, well, I went out to Alaska several times to inspect people, and there was only 4 of us in this whole division, by the way. So there was only 2 of us that made inspections. And so I liked it. I liked it because I liked people. But I worked at that, and it turned out that we were called Region 8 Division of Compliance, and it consolidated with Region 5 in California. So I didn't want to go to California. So I was offered a job with the Atomic Energy Commission here in the Richland Operations Office, and I stayed there until I retired for my service. But I was with most of this time, by the way, where I was transferred. I was in the Health and Safety Division at RL, and we monitor. By the way, at that time there was no. We had one manager for this whole site at Hanford. We didn't have, like they do now, the one for the 300 area, and all this kind of stuff. So we had our own health and safety division. So our entire, everything we did was associated with Hanford. And so that's where I finished my career with the federal government. I did work, however, 2 years after retirement for a company called MacTech, and they were contractor to DOE to work on specific problems and so on. And I worked with them for a couple of years, and I also worked on the employee compensation program for about a year, and then finally retired. That's kind of it in a nutshell. I hope I didn't confuse you.
No. I do want to go back and ask a couple questions. So when you first came to Hanford in 1950, what was your first impression of the area here?
Well, it was a shock. Number one, I had never been in Eastern Washington in my life. I got a job opening. I thought it might look like Seattle, but it didn't. So that's my impression. But I wouldn't trade this area for the whole state of Washington.